I'm Catherine Gibson for Insight. Today I'm joined by Nadeem Hussain, CEO of the Tameer Microfinance Bank. Mr. Hussain, thank you very much for joining me today.
Good morning, Catherine. It's my pleasure.
Can you tell me a little bit about Tameer and its approach to microfinance?
Certainly, Catherine. First of all, thank you for inviting me to your show. Tameer Microfinance Bank is the first private sector microfinance bank established in Pakistan. I established it along with 3 other co-founders about 6 years ago after a 27-year stint with the international organization. We capitalized the bank, and the bulk of the capital was provided at that time by the management owners. It's a bank which views microfinance as a financially feasible business with a social impact. So our approach is that this is not charity, this is a business model, but it must have a social impact. So we have a double bottom line, social impact with financial feasibility.
And what challenges do you face, particularly when you're operating in Pakistan?
Well, actually, it's the contrary. As far as challenges are concerned, most microfinance banks face regulatory challenges. Pakistan has been rated as #1 in the world by the EIU for creating an enabling environment from a regulatory perspective. So we have a special license from the Central Bank of Pakistan, and as such, there are no regulatory challenges. The challenge is actually, as we grow, is funding, and as we grow human resources, because it's a small industry in Pakistan, and we are growing very fast because the market is about 30 million people, and the industry is only about 2 million people right now, customers. So there's ample room for growth, and there's ample room for more competitors to come in. So our challenge is with ourselves in terms of how do we fund our growth fast enough, and how do we get the right human resources so that we are well balanced and we have a good bench.
There's a growing worldwide awareness of the need to develop a culture of entrepreneurship. What role can microfinance play in fostering entrepreneurship, particularly in South Asia?
Well, microfinance is a business like any other business, except that it's what I call, it requires patient capital, because your average loan size is so small and all your infrastructure costs are upfront. As a result, the break even is typically around 4 to 5 years. So just as you approach any new company, you would approach a microfinance bank or a microfinance institution, looking at what the returns would be. And in our case, we are the first entrepreneurs in microfinance in Pakistan. And one of our objectives was to demonstrate that microfinance is financially feasible, which we have. We broke even last year. And now, foreign direct investment from the US is coming in to establish microfinance institutions in Pakistan. So we then have both foreign direct investment as well as international players coming in Pakistan, which was one of our objectives.
Do you feel that there's a strong culture of entrepreneurship in Pakistan today?
There is a strong culture because the SME market, which is small and medium enterprises, are typically owner, established and run. But the challenges to them are access to capital. Pakistan's stock market and potential IPO market is very narrow. Commercial banks, and they have no venture capital funds or entities that invest in small business. So their challenge is access to capital and access to debt. But yes, this number of salaried people in Pakistan compared to the total people who are engaged in business is small. So most of the businesses are run by entrepreneurs.
A recent survey found that only 12% of the Pakistani population has access to formal financial services. Can you talk a little bit about the need for financial literacy in Pakistan and how that will impact microfinancing?
I think you need to distinguish between financial literacy and access to capital. The access to capital is not as a function because our people are financially illiterate. It's because our commercial banks do not wish to lend to this particular segment. And there's a variety of reasons, the risk associated with the segment and alternative investments available to the commercial banks. SME, which is a large contributor to our GDP as well as a large contributor to our employment, only has limited access, single-digit access from the commercial banks. And as a result, it's a neglected sector. We don't have access to the capital markets or the debt markets. So they need to grow from their own funds, which is a challenge for them. As far as access to finance is concerned, that's dealing not necessarily with the SME, but it's dealing largely with the general population. Only 12%, and that too is skewed towards the large cities. So if you get into the rural areas, access to finance exponentially reduces, in the sense that you probably have 2 to 3% people who have access to credit. If we're talking about access to health, it's less than 1%. I'm talking about health insurance. Access to life insurance is less than 1%. Total number of accounts that we have in the entire system is probably 15 million people in a country of 180 million people. That's one of the challenges Tameer has.
I'm curious, how has the worldwide economic slowdown impacted the state of microfinancing?
The reality is that the bottom of the pyramid is largely insulated, largely, not totally, from what's happening, for example, in Europe as far as economic growth or lack of growth is concerned, or how the large banks were affected. Banks in Pakistan are relatively less sophisticated. They're not into derivatives. They're not into all these large mortgage portfolios. So they haven't experienced the same kind of problems that large banks or small banks in the USA or Europe have. So my customer segment obviously is impacted by what's happening in Pakistan in terms of inflation, power outages. So that makes their cost of inputs higher. But they're able to pass most of this cost on to their customers. So if I am able to find additional funding, I'll be able to grow faster regardless of what the global economic scenario is.
And where do you see microfinance headed in the next 5 years?
In Pakistan?
Yes.
I think we have huge potential. As I said earlier, we just reached the tip of the iceberg. We have 2 million customers in a potential market of 30 million for credit. We've got less than 2-3 million customers in a market for probably 50 million for deposits. Same thing for insurance. So the market is open. Basically, you need to have a model that you can scale, and scale it in a financially feasible basis. So I see very positive things happening in microfinance in Pakistan.
Well, it's very good to hear your perspective. Thank you for speaking with me today.
Thank you very much.